Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are St. Louis.
This is St. Louis Cardinals baseball. Tonight from Southern California at Petco Park in San Diego. The Padres playing host to the St. Louis Cardinals in Game 2 of this weekend series. 23-year-old right-hander Carlos Martinez gets the call for the Cardinals. When he's on the mound, the Cardinals win. In his 22 starts, the team has gone 18-4. On the other side for the Friars, Ian Kennedy, the veteran right-hander, pitching very well since early June. ERA is under 3 in his past 14 starts. With Pat Paris and Rick Horton, I'm Dan McLaughlin. Delighted to have you with us for baseball here tonight on Fox Sports Midwest. And Rick, it should be a good matchup.
Always fun to watch Carlos Martinez pitch. He always brings energy. He's having an all-star season, though he's come back to earth a bit in his last 3 outings. Kennedy has not pitched very well against St. Louis.
It is game number 2 here from Petco Park in beautiful San Diego, California. The Cardinals, the Padres, game 2 comes your way next on Fox Sports Midwest. Kia in the driver's seat. The Cardinals have allowed the fewest home runs this season, 83. But you wouldn't know that watching Game 1 of this series. Solarte, part of a 5-run fifth. That's off of John Lackey. Then a pinch hitter, Brent Wallace, a 2-run shot off of Carlos Villanueva. They didn't stop there. Matt Kemp with a home run. A 2-run homer off the bat of Kemp. This ballpark saw the fewest home runs allowed in the National League a year ago. This season, the 5th most. Nice crowd on hand. The Padres. The Cardinals coming up in Game 2 on Fox Sports Midwest. Ridiculous. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And visit your local Mid-America Chevy dealers for great prices on our all-new 2015 vehicles today. The Hotel del Coronado, famous hotel across the bay here in San Diego. Those are $5 seats. Pay at the gate. Take a seat on the hill right by the beach and take in baseball here tonight. Matt Carpenter will lead it off. He'll play second base tonight. Then Steven Piscotty and Johnny Peralta. Jason Hayward, Yadier Molina, 5 for 15, 3 doubles against tonight's starter Ian Kennedy. Mark Reynolds is at third. Brandon Moss, Tommy Pham, and Carlos Martinez. On the bench for the Cardinals, the struggling Colton Wong. He'll hit from the left side. Cruz, Cosma, Borges from the right side. Wong is 2 for his last 27, so he gets tonight off. Ian Kennedy, start number 23 for the right-hander.
Cardinals have hit him very well in the past. His record not very good against St. Louis. In fact, 2-5 with an ERA over 8, but he has pitched well lately. One of those 2 starts, his last 2 starts, he walked 6 batters, however. So we'll see if the Cardinals are patient with him here this evening.
Matt Carpenter is 0 for his last 13. And a 1-0 pitch on its way. They've got the shift on here for Carpenter.
Teams have tried a variety of things against Matt Carpenter, including the shift. 3 infielders on the right side and off the line at third. Matt has shown that he's not afraid to bunt.
1 ball and 2 strikes.
Now the 2-strike shift Very different. Solarte comes over on the right side of second base.
Little check swing, and he's got a base hit. The 1-2. 2 balls, 2 strikes. Well, we've told you that Ian Kennedy, as you get a look at the hits by direction, has been pitching well with the ERA under 3 since June 2nd. However, in his last 12 starts, he's allowed at least 1 home run in all those games, and 14 total during that time. He's given up 26 this year. Carpenter late with a swing and a strikeout to start the night. Let's take a look at the Hyundai pitch arsenal for Ian Kennedy.
63% four-seam fastballs, curve change, and cutter to go along with it. Not an overpowering guy, really. He was a star pitcher in college at USC, and his best season was in 2011, and he went 21-4. I mean, 21-4, and somehow finished 4th in the Cy Young ballot.
Here's Stephen Piscotty. Back to Kennedy. 2 down. The defense behind Ian Kennedy this evening. Justin Upton is in left. Travis Jankowski, the rookie at center. Matt Kemp is in right. Solarte, Jerko, Spangenberg, and Alonso along the infield, and Norris is behind the plate. That's a look at Pat Murphy, the manager of the San Diego Padres, and we should say interim. Not sure if he'll come back next year. Here's Johnny Peralta. 3 hits in game 1 of this series.
Cardinals are looking, Dan, for some way to generate some offense. Take 3 of the first 4 players in the Cardinals lineup tonight. Carpenter, Piscotty, and Hayward now 0 for their last 28 combined.
Peralta, though, has been swinging the bat quite well. Hits in his last 9 starts. He has 129 hits this year. That's tops on the club and 9th overall in the National League. Long look by Kennedy, and here comes the 0-2. You mentioned that Ian Kennedy had a very good college career at USC. Originally, Kennedy was drafted out of high school by the St. Louis Cardinals and did not sign. La Quinta High School. 2 strikeouts in the inning. Carlos Martinez to the mound when we come back. Followed by Yonder Alonso and Matt Kemp. Then Justin Upton, the cleanup man, Jed Jerko, Derek Norris. It'll be Corey Spangenberg. Then Ian Kennedy, the pitcher, batting 8th. Travis Jankowski, 2 hits in his major league debut last night. On the bench, Wallace, who homered last night, Alexi Amarista, Melvin Upton Jr., Clint Barmas, and Austin Hedges. The Cardinals turn to one of their top pitchers, and that's saying an awful lot because they've got a handful of those. And tonight it's Carlos Martinez's turn to toe the rubber.
When he pitches, the Cardinals win. 12-5 overall record, all-star season, ERA under 3. Of course, every Cardinal starter has an ERA under 3.
Here's a 1-0 pitch to Solarte. Hit to the right side. Moss bobbled it, and plenty of time. Martinez is there for the out. A look at the Hyundai pitch arsenal for Carlos.
He's got the big four-seam fastball, 96 miles an hour, will also sink it and get ground balls. I think there are times where he's better when he's getting that than the four-seamer, and also has at times a devastating changeup. The curveball can be devastating as well, but there are times where he'll hang that. I think that's the key for a Carlos Martinez successful outing, is not making bad pitches in the middle of the plate.
Here's Yonder Alonso. 25 games in his career against the Cardinals, and a .309 hitter against St. Louis, and that's fair inside the third base line and down into the corner. Piscotty gets it back quickly into the infield. It's a double for Yonder Alonso.
Alonso continues to hurt the Cardinals, and he does it this time by the late swing. Takes it the other way, just inside the bag. I'm impressed here with the arm of Stephen Piscotty. He got that ball deep in the corner and made that play fairly close at second base at what should have been a stand-up double.
He's got a great arm. Saw that in spring. And now it brings in Matt Kemp, who's riding a 13-game hitting streak. He's hitting .385 during this streak. Homered last night. This is where Martinez has been so good this year. Runners in scoring position. Nasty pitch right there. The opponents against Carlos with runners in scoring position are hitting just .163. That leads all starters in the National League.
That's why the ERA is low. That's why the win-loss is so good.
Ground ball. Backhanded by Peralta. Settles and throws. 2 down. Dobbs Tire and Auto Center's defense for Mike Matheny's club. Piscotty in left. Pham in center. Hayward, his 7th outfield assist last night in right field. Reynolds, Peralta, Carpenter, Moss on the infield. Molina's behind the plate. Matt Carpenter, his 4th start this year at second base. Mark Reynolds, his 10th start at third base this year.
Cardinals defense was a problem last night, and we haven't said that very many times. And we'll see if the ball finds Carpenter at second and Reynolds at third. It normally does.
First pitch is strike 2, Justin Upton.
Hard to win a game when you make 3 errors.
Especially 3 in the same inning, too. Upton is hitting .302 here at Petco Park. Many thought he would be on the move at the trade deadline with many of his teammates, but they stood pat. Crazier things have happened. There's a high strike, but San Diego right now 7.5 games back in the National League West. The Cardinals start play 4 games in front of Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh a 3-2 win over San Francisco today on a walk-off hit by Starling Marte, a home run. And the Cubs 9-7. They beat Atlanta at Wrigley Field. So Chicago 7 games back as we speak.
On this trip, the Cardinals will play Arizona, then San Francisco, and San Diego, the hottest of the 3 teams right now. They've won 8 of their last 10, including 4 in a row. They swept the Braves before the game here yesterday. But Arizona, playing right around 500, is not going to be easy, and we know how good San Francisco can be with their pitching.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. Breaking ball and a strikeout. Upton knew it. First strikeout of what Carlos Martinez is hoping is many here tonight. At our Toyota keys to the game.
Carlos Martinez getting quick outs is start number one. Carlos has the ability to do that if the sinker's right and he's getting strike one. Runs. That's what you want from the Cardinals offense. We haven't been able to say that very many times lately, but it would be nice to have a breakout game offensively. And you'd think maybe this is the guy. They've hit Kennedy well in the past. Maybe tonight's the night.
First pitch to Jason Hayward is taken for a ball. Hayward over his last 7. Then Molina and Mark Reynolds. Well, you've talked about it, how the Padres are just hanging around right now and still have that outside chance with a little over a month to go in the regular season to sneak in the playoffs. Then it makes you wonder about the future of Pat Murphy, who is their manager. Pat is an accomplished college baseball coach. He was at Notre Dame and then Arizona State, a powerhouse. Youngest coach in the history of Division I baseball to get to 500 wins. 2010, he was hired as a special assistant here with the Padres, and now their manager after working as a minor league manager. So he's been around the game a long, long time.
You want to keep your manager? Play well in September.
7.5 out. Dodgers lead the Giants by 2. Arizona is 7 back. 2-2.
Well, the hard part for San Diego is they've just got so many teams they've got to chase. So you kind of have to just, boy, this sounds familiar. Do it one day at a time. Just get one team at a time and not think about kind of how long the road might be. Just play well.
Off-speed pitch on 3-2 to Hayward. He stays alive.
Padres, Dan, have some pieces offensively to make you think that could happen, that they could get hot collectively with Kemp, Upton, Alonso, Solarte. Maybe this new center fielder, Jankowski, who we saw here last night make his debut. And they also have Kimbrel at the end.
Leadoff walk. Let's see if the Cardinals, because of the lack of offense, maybe try a hit and run here with Yadier Molina. They've done that time and again over the years. He's one of the best in baseball at doing that. Or even a straight steal with Jason Hayward, who has 18 this year. A lot of teams have tested Derek Norris, the catcher of the Padres, tonight.
And we've said this is the best combination in terms of the batting order that the Cardinals have. Hayward with Molina behind him. The speed of Hayward, the ability to handle the bat that Yachty has. Taylor made for a hit and run.
In the air, deep left center. Jankowski is back and makes the catch on the track and up against the wall. Hayward back to the bag. At first base, as Yachty gave that a ride, and the speed of Jankowski, he shows it off right there.
Well, you're young when you make a great play and you start smiling. He's so happy to be at this level. Still can't believe it. A gifted player, Hayward, doing the smart thing in my view of going to second base in case he drops it, he can score. Kind of an in-between play as to whether or not Jankowski could run that ball down.
Known as a base-stealing threat. Good speed in the minor leagues. That's Jankowski in center field. Big gap in left center. Here's Reynolds.
From that long line of Stony Brook star center fielders. There's
Jankowski.
Yeah.
Starts and ends with him right now. Here is Reynolds hitting .231, 10 home runs, driven in 40. What a show he put on during BP in terms of some of the longest home runs you'll see at this ballpark.
I can tell you it was a show because there were 5 of us that were heavily in some kind of debate, as we often do up here in the booth with our production crew and talking about it. We all stopped talking. How hard is that?
To make you stop talking?
All of us. You were participating.
It's a miracle.
You were part of it.
2-1 the count. to make us stop talking. Double miracle.
5 of us actually were watching him just hit bomb after bomb.
The 2-1 pitch to Reynolds. We say it time and again, he does not get cheated, and he certainly did not on this 2-1 pitch.
Well, signature pitch for Kennedy is that off-speed pitch, and way out in front is Reynolds. He's shown a good one in the first couple of innings here, and that may be why he's settled down and starting to have a better year. He's gotten a feel for his off-speed pitches.
The 2-2. Strikeout of Mark Reynolds. And Hayward back to the bag safely at first. 3 strikeouts already for Ian Kennedy.
So the split for Kennedy that acts like a changeup. There's the grip, the split grip. And he's going to take speed off the baseball, and that is such a field pitch. You've got to kind of have, first of all, you have to have strong fingers to throw that. And you have to have a really good idea of the feel of the baseball, too, to make sure you're throwing it for a strike. It has to be down, but by splitting your fingers, you take speed off the pitch and create downward movement.
Here's Brandon Moss, first time tonight. 7 for 42 as a Cardinal. With the injuries, Cardinals are giving him every chance to stay in the lineup and play every day. At first base tonight.
One reason Hayward may not be running is he has had some leg issues within the last week, and perhaps they're going to be careful about sending Hayward. Otherwise, you think stealing second base here would be a logical option.
2 strikes on Moss, who has struck out 118 times this year. Tops on the club.
He's gotten his opportunities here. There's no question about that. It's not that he hasn't played enough. He's getting those chances, and this should be a good chance for him against Kennedy today. And we'll see what he does with it.
Mark Reynolds, by the way, his strikeout number 100. Runner goes, doesn't matter. Change up, strikes out Moss. 2 in the inning, 4 in the game for Ian Kennedy. Settle in, we may be in for a pitcher's duel here tonight. Kennedy looks sharp. Martinez was sharp early on. Carlos back to the mound for the bottom of the second when we come back to San Diego. Dugout not in the lineup tonight. With more on that, let's check in with Pat.
Yeah, Dan, Kolten Wong, of course, struggling here in the month of April. A 149 batting average. He's committed 3 errors, including 1 last night. And so Mike Matheny told him last night, maybe a good opportunity to get you a day off, maybe a couple of days off. And Kolten Wong looked at what was going on with himself, the frustration that he feels. He's a guy that carries a lot of that with him when things don't go well. And he talked to some of the other veterans last night about the opportunity to take a day off and just watch the game, maybe get a little break as well. And he thought that was probably a good idea. In fact, we talked to Yadier Molina, and Yadi was one of the guys that said, no, you need a break every once in a while. Kolten mentioned as well, 118 games played, tied with Johnny Peralta entering tonight for most games played on the team. At such a young age, he's still getting used to the grind of a big league schedule.
Thank you, Pat. Here's a 1-2 and hit out of play. I don't think it's just what we're seeing with Kolten Wong at the plate. He's fighting it defensively as well.
Yeah, he sure is. Pat mentioning the 3 errors, and maybe this is something that maybe could have happened 3 or 4 or 5 days ago, too. You saw the signs of it, but the problem is the Cardinals have had so many injuries, you've not wanted to take the potential of what Kolten could do out of your lineup.
Base hit into center for Jed Jerko, who's now 8 for 20 against the Cardinals this year. Follow the Cardinals with MLB.com at bat, the #1 app for live baseball, in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcast, and more.
There's sometimes you have to make a decision as a manager which isn't your favorite decision. And I think sitting Kolten maybe even as far back as a week ago would have been a natural thing to do, but you just had other reasons you couldn't do it. I like to hear Kolten understand and say that he understands that he has a problem of taking a bad play or a bad game with him. And I think for a young player, Dan, to learn that that's a negative, I mean, it sounds like a, hey, I really care about my job comment, but it really isn't a good thing to do. And you have to fight that. You have to find ways to kind of let the past be the past.
Inside, and it's 2 balls and no strikes.
If a wide receiver is worried about the last 3 passes that he dropped, he's probably going to drop the next one.
Derek Norris at the plate, 54 RBIs, 4th most among catchers in all of baseball with those 54 driven in. Runs the count to 3-0. This has been where Martinez has given himself a chance to go deeper into games, more efficient with his lack of walks. He's on a streak right now, 66 consecutive batters without a walk. Another factor of Kolten Wong is, by the way, no extra base hits in his last 85 ABs. And that's not him.
It is not.
The 3-1 pitch, and he hit him. So he hits Derek Norris.
Well, he still doesn't have a walk, but he did lose his command there to Norris, and he was trying to get the ground ball. You saw him shake to the sinker, and when Yadi wiggles his finger, that means sinker, and that's the pitch he wanted to try to get Norris to hit the ball on the ground. He just came off on the side of the ball, so it runs in on Norris. Instead of going down, it goes from left to right and off the plate.
Corey Spangenberg is the second baseman tonight. And that's ball 1. Hitting .259. 2 homers. He's driven in 11. Hit the other way, and a liner that is caught by Piscotty. So you have the pitcher here, then the 9th place hitter, and a chance to get out of this little jam here in the 2nd inning. Kennedy 4 for 32 this year, 125 his average.
Dan, if you had to guess, just with the eye test, just, nothing with any number behind it, but just the number of times where the pitcher comes up hitting 8th versus 9th, what percentage of the time does it feel like a disadvantage?
It feels like it majority of the time.
I would say 60-40.
I was going to say 60%.
Yep. And there's nothing scientific about that. That's really just the eye test.
But maybe it's because when times like this happen, we put more emphasis on it.
Yeah, that could very well be.
The corners are in. Kennedy does have 3 sacrifices this year.
And of course, the theory goes beyond whether or not this situation is better. It advances to what's the situation in the next inning when you've got a guy who can get on base in that 9th spot in front of your RBI guys. And so that's the other piece of the puzzle that proponents would say there are times where it's worth it. Still a hard sell to me.
Hit out of play, 2 strikes. Ian Kennedy, his brother-in-law, is in the Navy. And there's obviously a overwhelming amount of support and people that support the armed forces here in San Diego with the base. And he has a box set up tonight for friends and family of the USS Higgins.
Very nice.
Bunts it foul, so that'll go down in the books as a strikeout for Martinez. What a great deal on Cardinals tickets. Fill up at Phillips 66 with 8 gallons or more now until September 24th. You'll receive up to 50% off on a pair of tickets to a Cardinals home game. For more information, visit cardinals.com/Phillips66. It was interesting, swinging away with 1 strike, bunting with 2.
I think you're trying to confuse the defense a little bit, and I think you get to 2 strikes. The last thing you want is for your pitcher to hit into a double play. And so if you're swinging, and you're only going to do that as a surprise maneuver, and I think that's why once they tried it once, they didn't want to go back to it. Pitcher very likely just try to put the ball in play with 2 strikes is going to hit the ball softly somewhere, and you're out of the inning. I love Whitey's comment. I heard it many times to many pitchers. Is the comment, he never gave a bunt sign to pitchers. He never had a sign. He would tell you and call you over when you're on the on-deck circle, and he'd say bunt till you're out. So in other words, he kind of expected you to be out, or thought that would be a possibility. But he really didn't want you hitting into a double play, trying to do something too fancy.
It's a pitch right there that's been so good for Martinez this season against left-handed hitters, and that's that changeup. He's done it back-to-back pitches here with Jankowski.
What a night he had last night. Could have been better. Lined out to left field. Piscotty made a diving play on him. Probably took a triple away from him.
Tails away, and it's 3-2.
I think it's very possible that 2 or 3 weeks from now you're looking at the leadoff hitter for the San Diego Padres.
Comes in highly thought of, their minor league staff. 3-2 the count with runners at first and second, and 2 outs here in the bottom of the second. 3-2 pitch. Martinez has it. Former shortstop puts it away, and the Padres strand 2. Time now for you to tweet your strongest fan photo using the hashtag MWDataStrongFan. It's brought to you by T-Mobile. Here's Tommy Pham. And a strike. 4 strikeouts in the first 2 innings for Ian Kennedy. As Tommy Pham hit his first major league triple last night and his 3rd multi-hit game.
Where is the Cardinals' offensive surge going to come from? I think that's a pretty good question.
I think it's the question right now.
I guess the question's a lot easier than the answer.
Could be from somebody that's down in Florida, that's on the DL, trying to get back.
Could be somebody who's here in San Diego, either in this lineup or not. Trying a lot of lineup combinations over the last week to try to get around the injuries, which is clearly part of the story, but you've got to find a way to get past that somehow.
The Cardinals scored only 1 run when John Lackey was on the mound last night. He has 10 wins to show for 20 quality starts this year. So think about that. And we know how Lackey can be very frustrated with, at times, the defense behind him or things that go against him in a game. He was asked afterwards about the Cardinals offense, and he said, that's kind of who we are as a team. We have to pitch well to win. We realize that. Pretty bold statement. Very true statement.
It doesn't mean there won't be a time where that switches, but as of now, that's been the story.
Late call on Tommy Pham. Already 5 strikeouts.
Good start for Ian Kennedy, and here's the curveball. Going to create downward spin, 12-6. And he gets that ball in the perfect location down and away. So we saw his splitter grip, that's his curveball grip, and the Cardinals are not getting good swings at either pitch.
So 1 out and a strike to Carlos Martinez. Martinez hitting .116, no homers, no RBIs.
You mentioned that Kennedy was drafted by the Cardinals when he went to USC, Dan. He was actually, as a freshman, allowed to start, which was unheard of in USC, other than a guy who was the winningest pitcher ever at USC, their best pitcher ever. And if you think about all the people that played there, and the answer is Randy Flores, I think you'd be surprised.
Martinez can run. He's on his way to second base and in with a double. Just slap that the other way inside the first base line. And the Cardinals have their first hit of the night.
Carlos, a good athlete, just drives that ball the other way. Put the ball in play, good things happen.
So many unsung heroes in a championship season in 2006. One of the famous games in Cardinals history.
In New York.
And we think about the curveball of Wainwright to Beltran, the signature moment as they appeal to see if Martinez stepped on the bag, and the call goes the Cardinals' way. Randy Flores, the winning pitcher, Game 7 of the 2006 NLCS.
I met some athletes actually at an airport. I saw that they were USC players and went over and talked to them this spring early in the year, and I mentioned Randy Flores to them, and it was like I was talking about Babe Ruth.
After his playing days were done, as you get a look at Martinez, just got the bag, it looks like, but his playing days were over, and Randy Flores decided to go back and extend his education. He already had a degree, and went back and helped out as a graduate assistant at GA.
Did some broadcasting, did some coaching, also doing some side business that's becoming a big thing of recruiting tapes for young athletes to get them seen by colleges, which is long overdue. Really a sharp guy. Everybody loves him at camp.
One of my prized possessions in my office at home is a baseball that is signed by Randy Flores, and it says, Dan, it was an absolute dream come true to be able to pitch to you behind the plate. Signed, Randy Flores, world champion.
Now, did he sign it and then you filled in the rest of that stuff?
I put the quote in.
I'm just wondering.
Carpenter rips it into right field, but there is Matt Kemp. Makes the catch. Martinez tagging on his way to third and in there safely. Matt Kemp, by the way, with 9 outfield assists this year.
This ball is stung by Matt Carpenter. There's the tag. Martinez to third.
I think Kemp was a little surprised that Martinez was tagging up. Not to say that he would have gotten him, but he didn't have himself quite ready to make that throw.
Oh, you mentioned the 9 outfield assists. You'd think you'd always be ready, but with the pitcher running, you'd think maybe he's not going to. But you know, there's a chance for Martinez to score now on a wild pitch, pass ball, infield hit. Certainly rather be at third than not. You just don't want to make the third out there. You better be sure you're going to be safe.
First pitch is strike to Stephen Piscotty. Oh, 0-2. Ian Kennedy has had his issues with the Cardinals. 7 starts and an 8.31 ERA. This is since 1914, the teams that have had the biggest issues against St. Louis, including Mr. Willoughby there, his family and friends back home in St. Louis. On the outside corner, strikeout of Piscotty. So 2 of the strikeouts going Ian Kennedy's way. Low and maybe outside. Will Martinez get those calls? More to come as he's diving into third safely. No score from San Diego. Rising Stars face off as elite featherweight destroyer Max Holloway takes on dangerous double threat Charles Oliveira, plus a welterweight showdown between Neil Magny and Eric Silva. Catch UFC Fight Night tomorrow at 5:30, only on Fox Sports 1, streaming live on Fox Sports Go. We talked about just how well Martinez has pitched with runners in scoring position. Tonight, the Padres 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position in the first 2 innings. On the flip side, Ian Kennedy, the most he has struck out in a game this year, 8. He's done that twice. One of those times was in his previous start, his last start against Colorado, and tonight 3 innings already with 6. Here's Solarte, who's reached base in 22 of his last 25 games. He chops that up the middle, backhanded by Carpenter, and he makes the play.
So a good start for Kennedy, but also a good start for Carlos Martinez.
Carlos Martinez, our BJC Healthcare difference maker. The highest winning percentage among the National League starters this season. Greinke, Waka, Arrieta, Bumgarner, and Martinez. Carlos is trying to pick up win number 13. 6th best in the National League, tied with Jacob deGrom. Number 1 in wins, Arrieta and Bumgarner at 15. Waka and Cole at 14. Greinke with 13 wins.
Got a thought here about Carlos Martinez, Dan, that, well, it may not make any sense, but I believe it anyway. How's that for a preface for a comment?
We got a lot of time to fill. Let it rip.
And you're not surprised that I'm going to make a comment that might not make any sense either. For a lot of pitchers, here's my thought. For a lot of pitchers, when they get a hit, they run on the bases, they get involved offensively, they do things, you get concerned about them going back out onto the mound and it being a negative. And maybe they're winded, maybe they're kind of distracted, but the way Carlos is as a competitor, I think that's a positive for him. I think he wants to be in the game emotionally, physically, covering first base. All of that, I think, is part of who he is as a competitor.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, uh-oh.
Well, you know, you think about a lot of guys that are pitchers that will put the ball in play, they put their head down, and it's not even a 50% trot. This guy, give him credit. He's hustling down the line. He's diving headfirst into third. You know, little things.
And in that way, he reminds me of Woody Williams. And I bring him up a lot because I think he's a forgotten guy in recent years in terms of the contribution he made, not only as a winning pitcher, but I think he helped train and compete with guys like Chris Carpenter and helped them kind of set the mindset of how the starters act together in unison. And he was a former shortstop as well, and I think that was part of his game.
3 strikeouts tonight for Carlos Martinez. He went with a 3-2 changeup here.
Eyes on the target. Changeup on the black.
Do you feel that Martinez is finishing with his delivery more towards the plate instead of completely falling off to the first base line?
Yeah, but I think it's a cause and effect. I don't think it's kind of what he's doing at the end of the motion. I think it's more related to what he's doing at the beginning of his motion that's allowing him to be more direct to the plate. I think he's slower and more deliberate. He's not out of control with his bottom half. I think that helps him stay truer right to Yadier Molina.
There's still a fall off, but not nearly as pronounced.
And that doesn't bother me. I don't agree, never have agreed with the comment that a pitcher's main responsibility is to be in fielding position after you throw a baseball. I just don't believe that. I understand it. Your main responsibility is to get that guy out with a piece of wood in his hand. The fielding is a plus, which comes off of your normal pitching motion. If Bob Gibson wants to fall off on the first base side, let him.
2-1 the count here on Kemp, who grounded out to short.
Plus, you probably couldn't talk him out of it anyway.
No. 3-1.
Now, if falling off to the left side hurts your delivery to the plate, that's a different story. And that's really what you're talking about.
Last night, the 38th multi-hit game of the year for Kemp. Check swing and a walk. So the first in 72 hitters that Martinez has allowed a walk. 3 of 12 first pitch strikes for Carlos thus far tonight. Justin Upton was called out on strikes back in the first inning. Playing him to pull on the left side of the infield. Outfield is straight away and deep, and the first pitch is taken for a strike. Nice crowd here in San Diego on this Saturday night. Beautiful evening for baseball.
Been a little easier in the first 3 innings for Kennedy than it has been for Martinez. But the bottom line, at least thus far, is nothing on the board.
Into right center, and that drops in. Hayward backing up Pham, and they will hold the runner as Carpenter gets it back into Molina quickly. Runners at second and third with 2 outs. It'll be a double for Upton.
That ball was in the air a long time, but it was right between Pham and Jason Hayward, and we know Jason Hayward's dealing with leg issues. Perhaps he's got to be a little bit cautious about laying out and going full
was
speed.
Playing really deep.
And Pham was playing deep, so this ball just perfectly placed between them. There's the dive by Pham, backed up by Hayward. Again, a long way for both those guys to go, and Hayward saw out of the corner of his eyes a diving Pham and didn't want to get in the way of that.
The Cardinals need to find a way to get Jed Jerko out. He has torched the Cardinals this year. Good pitch, strike 1.
5 for 6 in his career against Carlos Martinez.
One ball, 1 strike. Which take for granted every single night. Molina behind the plate. All the miles adding up on that body this year and over the last 10 years here in the big leagues. These are the dog days of summer, and you just wonder how he is physically holding up.
A lot of innings.
2 strikes now on Jerko. Here's a 1-2 pitch from Martinez. We'll do it again. The Padres, 8 home runs they have hit in 5 games against the Cardinals. 3 of the 8 by Solarte, who's 0 for 2 tonight, but did homer last night. The 1-2. That caught the home plate umpire. Chris Segal is the home plate umpire. Todd Tichenor at first. Tim Timmons at second. Tim Welke, the crew chief, he's down at third.
Yachty may have softened the blow a little bit. It gets him first. It's a doubleheader.
The 1-2. Strikeout number 4 for Carlos Martinez. DraftKings players to watch: Syndergaard and Harvey of the Mets. Garrett Cole, who pitched today, took a no decision. And the Cardinals' Carlos Martinez. Head to DraftKings.com. Enter the promo code CARDS.
Martinez throws hard, but he gets a big strikeout here with a changeup. Down and in. Jerko swings over it. That's how the bottom of the third ended.
So 6 strikeouts for Ian Kennedy. There's strike 1 to Johnny Peralta. We're underway here in the top of the 4th. A win tonight, the Padres would have their 3rd consecutive home series win. They have played well since the All-Star break. Also, if they had win tonight, in terms of series, this would be their 8th win of the past 11. So they have picked it up. 1-1 to Peralta. 1-2 the count. One-two pitch. On the inside corner, strikeout of Peralta. Ian Kennedy, you see what he did early in the season. Since that time at home, 4-1, ERA just over 2. And he's sharp here tonight. He has struck out 7. In steps Jason Hayward. Hayward walked his first time up.
You mentioned that year where he went 21-4 and came in 4th in the Cy Young balloting. That year, Clayton Kershaw won it, and just behind him, Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee. So very good pitching performances that year, but certainly Cy Young caliber season for him in 2011, as it had an ERA of 2.88.
21-4 and you finish 4th.
Yep.
1-1 pitch inside to Hayward. Strike zone has been a bit wide.
Agreed.
For both teams tonight. And that's hit out of play. Two pitch. Now you have a little fun for $5. Right by the Tony Gwynn statue, there's a hill out there that leads into the beach, so the kids can have some fun as well. Bring your blanket and settle in for some Major League Baseball.
It's like a party out there, doesn't it?
It does. The 2-2 pitch.
All about timing for Jason Hayward. When he gets his arms extended, when he doesn't get tied up, pitches inside or pitches he's got a late swing on, when he can get those arms extended, he can be dangerous.
Hayward hits it the other way, and a base hit into left field. They set up a way, and he just went with the pitch. He's done that more and more in the second half of the season.
We talked about that yesterday. The way teams shift, will teams start teaching hitters to do more and more of this? Not that that's a new thought, but it may just become a necessity to start hitting the ball the other way more, to practice it. You know, I thought about yesterday when we talked about it. Wee Willie Keeler is famous for having said, you know, I just keep my eye on the ball and hit it where they ain't, which we understand is not proper grammar. Wee Willie Keeler was 5'4", and he used a 46-ounce bat. Now, players will use 31, 32-ounce bats now. So this was just a little guy who used a big bat and would just kind of place the ball where they ain't.
By the end of the year, Stan the Man used to shave the handle down a little bit to get it lighter, because he felt by the end of the season it felt heavier than it really was. Such a long year. The handles on the bats now are so thin. Molina sent one to the track in left center his first time up. As we mentioned before, he's got pretty good numbers against Ian Kennedy. The other night was home run number 100 of his career. Only he and Ted Simmons, the only catchers in Cardinals history with 100 or more home runs. Here's a 1-0 pitch. And a high fly ball lifted into left. Justin Upton under it. 2 down.
And while I'm going all the way back to Wee Willie Keeler, also think about Ty Cobb, and famous for having a batting style where he would keep his hands about 2 or 3 inches apart, and that's how he would stand with the bat. And when the pitch was on its way, if it was a pitch that was inside, he'd bring the bottom hand up so he could get more kind of leverage and get it quicker through the zone and pull it, or he would bring the top hand down and go the other way. And he did that kind of by instincts. And I'm not saying that's how you teach players to do. I just think there's a potential for there to be a revolution in some way, revolutionary thinking at least, on how to attack a team that's defending you so well with the shift. How can we overcome that shift and beat it?
10 years ago, it seemed like every batter you played basically straight up. The outfield may move a little bit and shade them, but the infield, it was straight up. Tonight, for instance, the Cardinals have seen various forms of the shift with every hitter, and it has changed with the various counts too.
Absolutely.
This particular case, they play Reynolds to pull. Solarte is near the line at third. Shortstop in the hole, that's Jerko. Spangenberg is the second baseman near the bag. A short lead by Hayward at first. You just wonder if Hayward was at 100%, would they be trying to steal on Derek Norris? Clearly not at 100%.
Well, he tried it once in the second inning with Moss at the plate, and there was a foul ball.
A little bigger lead this time, and a check on Hayward. 1 ball, 1 strike on Mark Reynolds. Two balls, 1 strike on Mark Reynolds. Hayward, the runner at first base. Outfield is deep. And Kennedy steps off. Down that left field line, it is hooking and foul. 2-2 the count.
Just how foul? There's your answer.
The 2-2 to Reynolds. In the air, left field. Upton broke back, now comes in and makes the catch. St. Louis has left 3 on. There's no score. Personalized just for you. Now with the StubHub app, you can select your favorite teams, artists, and discover new ones too. Start a StubHub app and let the fun find you. StubHub, the official fan-to-fan ticket marketplace of the Cardinals. Derek Norris will lead it off for San Diego. He's hit by a pitch back in the second. Padres have already stranded 5, and that's lined into right center field. That ball will get down and go all the way to the wall. Norris digging for 3. Leadoff triple. Second triple of the year for Derek Norris.
Spacious outfield here in the gaps at Petco Park. And he plugs that gap perfectly. Pitch middle of the plate. Pham tried to cut it off, and then he just has to chase it. One thing I liked on that play, and it's a minor thing in some ways, but Carlos Martinez in perfect position backing up.
Infield is drawn in. Corey Spangenberg. Two and 0. Lined out to left. 0 for 1 tonight. The pitcher on deck, and again, you get this man, you have a chance to get out of the inning. Up the middle. Knocked down by Carpenter, and in time. Through Martinez, mishandled by Carpenter on the backhand. Runners at the corners and nobody out. I think you question right now Derek Norris and why he is not the first run in this game.
Well, I think the reason is he thought Martinez might get it first, and so he started to go, then stopped, and then once he stopped, he couldn't keep going. Here's a ground ball. If Martinez gets it, he's out at the plate, and then so he kind of went back to plan B, which the ball has to get through the infield for me to go. Doesn't get through the infield, but the Cardinals don't get an out either.
It is a base hit. Kennedy tried to bunt. back in the second inning with 2 strikes and bunted foul. Let's see how the Padres want to play this.
I got to believe he's bunting here to at least move the runner from first to second. The question will be whether Norris will be off with it with the safety squeeze. So much for a bunt.
Remember in his previous start talking about Martinez Sunday, he had a play at the plate, little shovel pass to Molina on a similar type situation like this. The play was reviewed. It went Miami's way as they salvaged 1 game in that series. The defense that day let Martinez down. He was cruising in that game. 0-2. Carlos has walked 1. He has hit a man. He has struck out 4. And he's given up 5 base hits. First and third, nobody out.
Very surprised that Kennedy is not bunting in this situation to get a second runner into scoring position. Again, you risk a double play too with a pitcher at the plate. I think the play here is to bunt. Just sacrifice 1 runner over, take your chances with Jankowski.
The 0-2 pitch. Kennedy again squaring, gets the bunt down. Martinez will get the out at first. Moss back to the bag. Runners at second and third. 1 out.
It took us a while to get there, but that's what we thought would be the play. Kennedy gets the job done, advances Spangenberg to second, and there's his bunting technique. Gets high on the bat handle perfectly. Actually looked down to third base to see if Norris was taken off after he bunted the baseball. Wonder if he expected there to be a little more aggressive approach from Norris.
The corners are in. Runners at second and third. Travis Jankowski. And a ground ball that's hit to second. Taken there by Carpenter. Run scores. 1-0 San Diego.
So hard to strand a runner at third with nobody out. You just know there's multiple ways to get a runner in. One is to just hit a ground ball to the right side with the infield back. That's what Jankowski was able to do. Fastball in, jams him a little bit.
Here's Solarte hitting .329 this season with runners in scoring position. 0 for 2 tonight.
Always interesting to see how managers play infield in and infield back too. You wonder if Carpenter's in on that play, if that ball would have been right at him, which would have been out number 2, or would have been to his side and would have been a 2-run single. That's the gamble you take when you bring the infield in. Hard to tell.
Turns into a big inning potentially.
Exactly.
Good changeup on a 2-0 pitch. Popped up left side. Peralta wants it, and he has it. Into shallow left. Cardinals shortstop. Jankowski his second RBI in as many nights. 1-0 Padres. a number of those victories this season. Brandon Moss, Tommy Pham, and Carlos Martinez. As Moss looks at a strike, struck out swinging back in the second inning. Ian Kennedy with 7 strikeouts tonight, the first 4 innings. Shift on here for Moss. Most teams have done that. We've seen that time and again.
This is the shift I think works so well against left-handed batters when you've got the second baseman playing deep. I think many hits are robbed. Well, they're just switching again as they did earlier. They're bringing Solarte over and switching positions with the shortstop Jerko. But the second baseman deep, I think that robs a lot of hits to the right side.
What are you seeing with Brandon Moss? We know it's an uppercut swing, but he's obviously off to a tough start. What do you see?
I just think his timing's off. You know, he's either ahead of the breaking ball, he's behind the fastball, he's behind a lot of fastballs, clearly.
Oh for 2 tonight.
And ahead of the off-speed pitch. Been a year where pitching has been king for Mike Matheny and the Cardinals, which means a lot of close games. Cardinals have lost 19 games by 1 run. They've lost 10 by 2 runs. And part of that is you're just talking about a lot of low-scoring games. Very few blowouts this season. Every team's going to have those. The good way to look at that run differential in losses is to say the Cardinals are in an awful lot of ball games. Certainly they've won an awful lot of ball games, but even the ones they lose, they don't lose by much.
Pham was called on strikes. Pitch that may have been a little outside and low. He had words with the home plate umpire. And here's an 0-1 pitch. Now 0-2. It is a wide strike zone tonight.
It sure is. They're getting that fastball inside. Kennedy's had some strikeouts there, and he gets a strike there, which is kind of, again, puts Tommy Pham in the hole, deep in the hole.
And defensive. You know, good pitchers, you see it time and again at this level with the command that they have. Umpire gives you an inch or two on that outside or inside portion of the plate, they go right back to it. The 1-2.
Well, the best I've ever seen at that, you'd say Greg Maddux was good at it. And they think he'd be everybody's choice. But I think kind of underrated in the ability to do that was a guy that pitched for the Cardinals briefly, but you don't think of him as a Cardinal, Fernando Valenzuela. He had the ability to stretch the plate too. And he would understand if you're going to get that pitch an inch off the plate, I'm going to go 2 and then 3 and then 4 until you stop. Some of the great ones were known for that.
Pham shoots it into right. Kemp is on the move. He won't get it. Over his head and to the wall. Tommy Pham to second base and stops there. A 1-out double for Tommy Pham. For the Cardinals, just their 3rd hit tonight.
So Pham gets behind in the count, but Kennedy can't put him away. It's a good at bat for Tommy Pham. Didn't give up on it. Gets a pitch he can handle right down central. Head on it. See the concentration on his face over the head of Kemp.
Martinez doubled inside the first base line. He's 1 for 1. Big gap in left center. Outfield is shallow. Corners are in. The All-Star this year for the Cardinals, Carlos Martinez. Showing bunt. Did not go.
One of the problems with a pitcher hitting with a runner at second base is the outfield can play more shallow and have a better chance of throwing you out at the plate. Kemp
we've mentioned has all the assists in right, a good arm in center field, a good arm in left in Upton. We're trying to hold Pham close to the bag at second so he doesn't get a good jump.
Chopped up the middle, backhanded, and safe at first as Martinez gets down the line as well as anybody on this roster. An infield hit, he's 2 for 2. And now a great opportunity for the Cardinals and Matt Carpenter.
Well, Carlos smelled a hit right there. He knows he can beat this out, takes off down the line. He's just a smooth, easy fast, isn't he? He's kind of gliding down the line. Well, here's your opportunity for the Cardinals. They've had nothing really to speak of through 4 innings, and maybe they can get to Kennedy here.
Carpenter hitting .353 with runners in scoring position.
Very late on that delivery.
We saw that too earlier at bat. A little long.
Yeah, a long swing is often going to be a late swing. Just taking you too much time to get the bat head through the zone. You think about Ted Simmons' conversation with you again the other day. Chopping wood straight to the ball. The long swing is not straight to the ball.
The 0-1. Matt Carpenter leads the club in home runs and RBIs. Doubles, walks, on base percentage, runs scored. He's 7th best in the league. Now the Cardinals count on him again here tonight. The key spot in this game.
I think he'd get a split finger here. He did not look good on that pitch in his first at bat.
9 strikeouts tonight. Carpenter's been ejected. This strike zone has been as wide as we have seen a strike zone this season.
Mike Matheny may get thrown out before this is over too. He's trying to defend Matt Carpenter, who's already out. And this has been building for the Cardinals because the zone has been so big. And a key call, key strikeout for Kennedy with Matt Carpenter at the plate. Here's the pitch off the plate. Now it hits the glove. That doesn't make it a strike. I don't blame Kennedy for throwing it there. I don't blame Norris for framing it there. But that pitch was not a strike.
No, it wasn't. But that's been the case all night. We've been talking about it. Now the Cardinals need a 2-out hit from Stephen Piscotty. Runners at first and third. The one guy you think about when he questions a strike zone, more times than not, in the numbers and the computerized looks at it, more times than not, he's right. That's Matt Carpenter.
There's actually a sabermetric stat and that specifically judges how many times a player gets called for a strike on a pitch that's just off the plate. And Matt Carpenter has led baseball, led the National League the last 2 seasons in that category of getting called strikes on pitches that weren't strikes. So what does that tell you? Maybe they ought to trust him a little more. But it shows me that he understands the zone well and is willing to take that pitch that's 2 inches off the plate because he knows it's 2 inches off the plate. I think what makes that call worse from the Cardinals' perspective is the timing of it as well. You've got Carpenter at the plate, the risk that you mentioned. He's so good at that. You don't worry about him hitting with 2 strikes.
generally. First and third and one out, and he gets rung up.
(3-1). Interestingly enough, there was an article done on umpires that have the most strikeouts when they're behind the plate. Seagal, by the way, was the fewest. This was about a year ago. Just something to keep in mind. But tonight, no doubt, wide strike zone.
Maybe he's making up for it.
One of the biggest pitches of the night right here. 3-2 on Stephen Piscotty. Ian Kennedy with 9 strikeouts. How about that? Throwing over to third with Pham there, and Martinez was headed towards second base. This big crowd is ready to erupt. 3-2 pitch to Piscotty. Ripped foul. And a Cardinal fan brought his glove and made a great play.
How about that play?
Sign him up.
That's Gold Glove play right there. That ball was smoked.
That saved somebody down there.
It did. Now Piscotty needs to smoke one fair.
Big gap in left center. Out of play. Piscotty was called out on strikes. Questionable call on the third strike back in the third. Into the top half of that inning, and is also grounded back to the pitcher. (3-2). 10 strikeouts tonight for Ian Kennedy. He strikes out the side. And along the way, Carpenter ejected in this game. This was strikeout number 9. The final pitch that Carpenter will see tonight. 13th, you'll be taken on a route through downtown St. Louis. Finish on the field at Busch Stadium. Run benefits area kids through Cardinals Care. For more information and to sign up, head to cardinals.com/6K. New second baseman is Colton Long.
Yeah, I hope Colton Long enjoyed his time off. Wasn't as long as he thought it would be. There was a conversation about maybe getting a couple of days off, but he's forced back into action quickly here with the ejection of Matt Carpenter. Maybe that's what he needs. Come into a game kind of cold and don't think about it and just play.
And a fastball and a strike at 97 from Carlos Martinez to Yonder Alonso. 2, 3, and 4 in the lineup for San Diego. A lineup that has gone 1 for 9 with runners in scoring position. So we always talk about innings, and it's not the fact that you may throw 8 or 9 innings. It's how do you get there? Have they been taxing or not? And we've got a race now with the Cardinals, the Pirates, and the Cubs. Into shallow left. Oh, what a play by Mark Reynolds. The basket catch. But the point being about Martinez is that if you had a sizable lead, this is a nice play by Mark Reynolds. You know, maybe you're thinking about skipping him a start or two in September. Michael Walker would be in that same conversation, but with every game meaning so much, not sure you're able to do that. Would you agree?
Yeah, and I just think there's so many variables that are going to go into that kind of decision that's probably going to be a mid-September decision. I don't think you need to worry about it in August, but it's getting close to, you know, where do you maybe shorten the start or skip the start completely of some of the young guys, and also when do you give some of your relievers who've been worked heavily, when do you give them 4 or 5 days off? I think in September things will be different because Mike Matheny will have many more players to juggle anyway with the September call-ups. I think probably around September 1 is when you evaluate that more deeply.
Martinez now at 146 2/3 innings. Most he's ever thrown was last year, 89 1/3. So potentially with, let's say, roughly 8 to 10 more starts, maybe a little bit more than that, can easily get to 200 innings this year. That could be no problem for him. Four more strikeouts tonight. He's up to 148 on the year. Make it 149. That's tops on the staff. More on Carlos. Let's check in with Pat.
Dan, I talked to Derek Lilliquist, the pitching coach of the Cardinals today, and asked him specifically about Carlos Martinez. He's very impressed with Carlos right now, his maturity as a pitcher, as a competitor, and more importantly as a person. The loss of Oscar Taveras certainly weighed heavily on Carlos, and he came through that and has done very well with that. And his maturity as a pitcher has grown by leaps and bounds. I think everybody's been impressed with that. But when your pitching coach has high praise for you like that, you know, a guy's working with him every day and with him in the dugout every day when he's not pitching, it's high praise.
Always having fun, energy that he brings to this club, and every fifth day for the most part giving this team a great chance to win. Here's an 0-1. In the air out to shallow right. There's Hayward. And that is the first 1-2-3 inning that Martinez has had tonight. 4:30 St. Louis time. It's our Budweiser What's on Tap game number 3 on a Sunday afternoon here in San Diego.
Kennedy's been very sharp today, and he's been taking advantage of a wide zone, so he just keeps the ball out of the middle of the plate. We're looking at freeze frames of the strikeouts that he's picked up here today, all of them off the middle of the plate, sometimes down, but definitely off the corners, in and out. And he has just been an artist here, and he's taken advantage again of the big zone.
10 strikeouts tonight. Here's Johnny Peralta. Pulls it foul for strike 1. Peralta over 2 with a pair of Ks. I'm sure there's a lot of fans that are watching this game and saying, okay, 10 strikeouts tonight. Yeah, Kennedy's been good. Don't get me wrong on that. But the umpires helped a little bit. How are umpires evaluated after every single game? And by the way, they are with just about every call you can imagine. That's a base hit into center field.
Good start to the inning for the Cardinals, and yes, we were told by the umpiring group, really their leaders and some of their evaluators. We had a seminar in New York a couple of years ago, and they said they get a email with a file of all of their calls that were close on the base pass every night after the game. So if there's 6 or 7 close calls, they'll get that file to review positioning and did they get it right. And they'll also, if they were behind the plate that night, they'll receive a numerical grade on how many of their pitches were correct. And that goes right against the kind of the electronic strike zone that we all know about, that Major League Baseball uses and provides data with. And they know if you were 95% right or 92%. So they are evaluated and they're graded on that. And I'm sure they're reprimanded if they're not good, but I think baseball understands, and we don't like it as fans of the game because we don't get to see those grades, but they have reasons for not making that public. You don't want to come to a ballpark and know that this is a 72% umpire behind the plate, and you certainly don't want players thinking that. Some of that knowledge probably isn't great to share with everybody.
2-1 the count on Hayward.
And some may disagree with what I said. Players are evaluated. Their numbers are on the board. But the umpires are really in control of the action, and their authority is important on the field. And I think fans should know, though, that they are evaluated regularly.
The 2-1 pitch to Hayward. One thing I do not agree with, they can send a pool reporter down to visit with an umpire after a controversial call, or maybe there's a rule book question and it's given to the umpire. And you played this game, you gave up walk-off hits and home runs, and you've had times when you want to say, look, I don't want to talk to the media. Yes. I don't want to answer these questions. But part of the job is answering the tough questions. As Hayward hits it the other way and lines out to Upton.
They are required to do it as well, umpires, and they're reprimanded if they don't. And I know of a couple of cases this year where they wouldn't talk to the pool reporters, but they're supposed to.
There's a quick time period too to get that question in, or questions.
Well, there's rules. You have to ask for an umpire to appear to talk to a pool reporter, and you have to do that in a timely fashion. And if you don't, they're not required to. But you know, if there's a game-changing play, certainly fans of both teams are going to want to know what went into that play and what do you think about it, especially if there's a rule issue.
We've talked about this before as well, but it'd be nice with particular review plays. What are they exactly looking at? Some of them, it's easy, you know. Others are not. And should they make those announcements to those at the stadium as well as those at home watching on television or listening on radio? Molina taps it foul.
Well, the worst case of that we've seen was a play involving the Cardinals. I mean, in my mind, this is exactly what you're talking about, and even worse from the player's point of view. Mike Matheny went out to question a call, and it was actually a crew chief review. It wasn't a manager's challenge, but Mike wasn't told that, didn't know that, and it could have been that. So when the play didn't go the Cardinals' way, Mike thought he lost his challenge, and he didn't use a challenge later in that game that he could have used. And he just did not think that was fair, and certainly agree with it.
Tap slowly to third, barehanded by Solarte. What a play that is. Outstanding do or die from Solarte. So many things have to go right to make that play. Charging, then the bare hand, getting a grip on the ball, and making a strong throw off balance.
And what about the grip? The grip's got to be good. We had an ISO on him yesterday that when the ball went in his hand, he wasn't able to get a firm grip on the ball, through a sinker to first. That's no sinker. That's a bullet.
Padres have a player there in Solarte, at least against St. Louis.
I like it.
Remember, they traded away Chase Headley, San Diego, to the Yankees. Solarte was the fill-in last year when Alex Rodriguez was suspended. We saw him come to St. Louis wearing that Yankee uniform, and now Headley is there, and quite the difference in money. But the production, pretty much the same.
Yeah, those 2 points on the batting average, probably not worth those many millions of dollars.
Solarte, by the way, the nephew of former major leaguer Roger Cedeno. They are still extremely close. As a matter of fact, Cedeno bought the home that Solarte was raised in. He spent 9 years in the minor leagues. Broke through with the Yankees. He was with the Twins, the Rangers, and now has found a home here with San Diego. So give him a lot of credit.
Kennedy must be sneaky fast here tonight, because there have been numerous late swings for the Cardinals. I know they're protecting against the split that's been good for him, but they have been late on fastballs.
And a ground ball that's hit to the second baseman. Ian Kennedy through 6. Announcer series featuring Hall of Fame broadcaster Harry Carey. 25,000 fans 16 and older receive the Harry Carey bobblehead with a voice chip of his epic call of Stan the Man's 3,000th hit, courtesy of Maryville University. That's Monday, September 7th. I can tell you those tickets, a few thousand remain maybe. Those will go very quickly. So if you're thinking about getting those tickets and heading to that game, you need to jump on it now.
40,000 plus again
on a Monday night. There's something like 41 or 42,000 already sold. Here's Jed Jerko, and he pulls it foul.
Last homestand, another great homestand, and you know we're running out of home dates, Dan.
Come home, we've got Washington, first opponent the Cardinals will face, and then after that, a day off, key series with Pittsburgh and then Chicago. Martinez gets the strikeout, and for Carlos tonight, that is number 6. Well, he's done just about everything he can tonight. Couple of hits. He's struck out 6. He's stranded 6. Allowed just 5 hits.
Really minimized the damage too, hasn't he? Pitched around things, and there have been some base runners for San Diego, but he's found a way to pitch around 3 extra base hits. There's a couple doubles and a triple in this game. The triple did end up scoring. That was Derek Norris in the 4th.
Something that may be overlooked right now in this game, but a key hit is the triple by Derek Norris, who's at the plate. You just wonder, did Tommy Pham, I don't want to say it was a poor route, but could he have gotten to that before it got past him into the gap in right center? If so, it's a double, not a triple, maybe a different inning. Maybe.
Well, we talked about it when it happened, that he ended up getting the wrong angle and then chasing the ball to the wall. And he's trying to cut it off and maybe get a shot at second base, but then you kind of lose that opportunity, and then it got worse as it ended up being a triple. But there was a big gap there too in right center field.
Spangenberg trying to bunt his way on and bunts it foul. Strike 1. He has an infield hit and is also lined out to left.
I'm sure there's a good reason why you're bunting for a base hit with the pitcher up next in the bottom of the 6th. There's probably 5 great reasons, and I can't think of one. Can you think of a good reason?
Still thinking about it.
Don't hurt yourself.
Well, only thing I can think about is he gets on, and then maybe you're pinch hitting for Kennedy, who's getting close to 100 pitches. But
boy, that'd be good, wouldn't it? Get him out.
I'm stretching it. I'm stretching it. Strong fan photo of the night. Hashtag MW Data Strong Fan. Brought to you by T-Mobile. There is Clint Barmas, who's now your shortstop at the age of 36, still playing here in the big leagues. He's been around a long time. Indiana State Sycamore product. And Jed Jerko, I believe, shifts from short to second. Ian Kennedy still in the game. Brings in Brandon Moss, then Tommy Pham in the pitcher spot for St. Louis. Moss 0 for 2 with a pair of strikeouts. The shift on again. That's ripped down the right field line and fair. Yes, it is. Boy, did Moss and the Cardinals need this. Leadoff double to start the 7th inning for St. Louis.
This ball just barely fair down the right field line. He got a pitch that was up. And he's been struggling with timing here tonight against Kennedy, but he's right on this one. Just barely fair. And into the corner. Nice start to the inning for St. Louis. Now you've got to do something with it.
The best opportunity the Cardinals have had tonight was runners at first and third and Carpenter up, and he struck out with 1 out, and then Piscotty struck out to end the threat. That was back in the 5th. This is the Gateway Honda home run inning. Cardinals hit a home run. The Gateway Honda dealers donate $1,000 to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Pham has doubled to right and has also struck out.
Cardinals have been working with a 4-man bench. Now you can make it 3. With the Carpenter ejection and Colton Wong coming into the game. So you only have Borges, Cruz, and Cosma on the bench to pinch hit potentially for Martinez.
You might take your chances with Carlos, who's 2 for 2, and squeeze another inning out of him, too. That's the decision that will be upcoming here for Mike Matheny.
Martinez at 87 pitches through 6.
2-1. Pham did not like that call either. He had words with the home plate umpire. He was called out on strikes back in the 3rd. To right-handed hitters with Kennedy on the mound, that outside portion of the plate has been given to him a lot. Pham fights it off, and a base hit into right. Moss will be held up at 3rd. 2-hit night for Tommy Pham. Moss had to make sure that got over Jerko's head. Let's take a look.
Wasn't hit real well, so he wasn't sure at first, and then when he gets to 3rd, he's given the go, then the stop sign by Jose Oquendo, and the fact that there's nobody out certainly led to that decision.
Kennedy at 103 pitches. We'll see if they want to make a decision and a move with him. And as we say that, Pat Murphy hops out of the dugout. He will go to his bullpen. Kennedy strikes out 10 in this game tonight. Diego. Carlos Martinez will hit for himself with runners at first and third. He's 2 for 2, by the way, tonight. There's nobody out. Pham, a 2-hit night. Here's Sean Kelly, our Chevy call to the pen. We saw Kelly come in the 7th inning of the game last night to face Stephen Piscotty with runners at first and third and only 1 out. He got Piscotty to fly out to center. That led to a run charged to their starter. Then Peralta singled and got a strikeout of Hayward. So he comes in a key spot here.
He comes in essentially with Martinez in a bunting situation. I wonder if they think they have a better chance at a strikeout with Kelly on the mound against Martinez than Kennedy. Even though Kennedy has 10 strikeouts, he was up to 103 pitches. There's the look at the defense for San Diego. They're, of course, expecting a bunt with Solarte in on the grass. Martinez's job here just to deaden it towards first base. Get Pham to second.
Carlos, 4 sacrifices this year. The Hyundai pitch arsenal. Sinker, slider for Sean Kelly.
Here's the example again with the shortstop Barmes having to cover second base. He's very close to the bag. The second baseman's going to cover first. First baseman's going to charge. If you're Brandon Moss, you can get a big lead as far as the third baseman is.
Martinez, a swing and a miss. I said to my partner tonight, Rick Horton, I said, wouldn't it be ironic to see Colton Wong come up and have a chance to do some damage in a game that he did not expect to play in? But with the ejection of Carpenter, Wong will get his first plate appearance in this game. And as Pat reported, they were thinking about giving him 2 days off. Well, Carpenter ejected, and so Wong will hit with runners at first and third. 1 out. Kelly gets Martinez, and their lone lefty is Mark Zepchinski. The former Cardinal will come in to face Colton Wong when we come back. Sunday, September 6, 25,000 fans, ages 16 and older, receive an adult cap that proudly displays the American flag inside the STL logo. For tickets and more information, Cardinals.com/promotions. It's our Chevy call to the pen. Mark Zepchinski is into the ball game. Zepchinski came in last night, hit a man, and then got Carpenter to fly out to left. Then they went to Kelly. And as you talked about, the slider, the key pitch for him.
And there's one thing that we'll never know. I guess Mike Matheny might tell us, but what if Matt Carpenter hadn't gotten tossed out of this game and there was first and third with nobody out, Martinez at the plate? Would we have been seeing Colton Wong pinch hit there?
Good point.
but no real left-handed options off the plate and off the bench. So Martinez hits, he strikes out. Now it's up to Kolten Wong.
The Cardinals had runners at first and third, one out back in the fifth, did not score. First and third here, one out. First plate appearance of the night for Kolten Wong. And the 1-0 pitch from Mark Zepchinski. 1 ball, 1 strike. Giving you the numbers, he's 2 for his last 27. Does not have an extra base hit in his last 85 at-bats. Zepchinski, the third pitcher used tonight. Here's a 1-1.
That's when Zepchinski is good, when that slider is sharp, quick, and down and away. Occasionally he'll make a mistake with it. I would guess he would repeat it here.
The 1-2 pitch to Wong, instead a check on the runner at first. Doesn't chase.
Just thinking, Dan, that the wide plate is still in play. And again, must say that it's been wide both ways. There have been some calls Upton didn't like on the other side. Matt Carpenter didn't like a call, got tossed. Kolten Wong has to be aware of that right now, which makes it doubly tough for him to hit against his left hand.
The 2-2 to Kolten Wong. On its way.
Downward breaking slider, really good pitch from Zepchinski. Started out knee high, ended up low. We're going to get another pitcher here in the 7th, and it's Bud Norris.
It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. Bud Norris started the 7th inning last night, gave up a double to Mark Reynolds, and then Tommy Pham RBI triple. He was lifted in the game as a reliever. And you could speak to this, Rick. If you have a tough outing, the thing you're thinking about, you saw the numbers, or Chevy called to the pen, you want your manager to put you right back out there, get back on track, get that trust back. Well, key spot here tonight.
Yeah, when you have a bad game, you wear it, and you wear it as long as it takes for you to get back out on the mound and do something good. And even if it's just getting a batter out, which of course is the job for Bud Norris here, but it's not just any batter. It's a batter with really the game on the line in many ways here in the 7th inning. There's going to be more pitches that matter in the next couple of innings, but this is a pretty key at bat here for Piscotty against Bud Norris.
Piscotty, tough night, 0 for 3 with a pair of strikeouts. He has fought this strike zone of the home plate umpire. The Cardinals have struck out collectively tonight 12 times, 10 of those by Ian Kennedy. Kelly came in with 2 on, nobody out. Martinez bunting, got the strikeout. Zipchinski, the strikeout of Wong. And now Stephen Piscotty. Big gap in left center. Strike 1.
Norris was hanging his curveball last night, Dan. You mentioned that, noticed it right away. He gave up a couple of hits to the 2 batters he faced, Reynolds and Pham, but it was because the curveball was just spinning a bit. Kind of a signature pitch for him. That pitch there was okay, but not terribly sharp.
Catcher giving defensive signs.
Reminder that Pittsburgh and Chicago have already won. Tightening up in the NL Central.
The 0-1 pitch to Piscotty. Bud Norris has always had that very good fastball, but it's been the breaking pitch, middle outer half, that at times just dumbfounded Cardinal hitters. Could be a really good pitch when he was in Houston. 1-1 the count. You mentioned it earlier. Against Ian Kennedy, a lot of late swings. That's really been the case all night.
Piscotty late on that high heater. 2 choices here for Norris. Go back up there again. Maybe even a little higher. Or throw that curveball.
Inning started with a double by Moss. Pham the base hit. Then Martinez struck out. Wong struck out. Now 1-2 on Piscotty.
You have to do your homework as a reliever too, coming into a game, recognizing that the strike zone has been big. He tried to widen it a little bit there, tried to get the call off the plate.
Runner from first off with this pitch. 3-2 the count. That runner has good speed, Tommy Pham. This crowd has been electric here tonight in San Diego. The 3-2 pitch. Piscotty, a good cut, fouls it back. Two. The Cardinals have struck out. Opportunities have been missed. We head to the bottom of the 7th.
Dan, you look back on that inning, and I don't know what number you would put it at, but I'm guessing that Brandon Moss would have had a 65% chance of scoring on that base hit to right. Just guessing.
Base hit out to left for Alexi Amarista.
And with what followed, you look back and you say, well, that would have been worth the effort.
Yeah.
But at the time, I still think it was the right move.
AT&T U-verse rewind. The job by the bullpen, outstanding for San Diego tonight.
And this is what followed. The strikeout of Colt Wong, then painting Stephen Piscotty. That's Bud Norris. So 3 different pitchers come on to get 3 strikeouts. We saw Kelly, Zepchinski, and Norris in that inning. So that first and third nobody out turned into a goose egg on the board.
Pitch count only at 89 for Carlos Martinez. 13 strikeouts by the Cardinals tonight. That is not their season high. You may recall back on May 13th at Cleveland, Corey Kluber struck out 18. The Cardinals in that game struck out a total of 19 times. Travis Jankowski has an RBI tonight, showing bunt, gets it down, and he's safe.
Perfectly executed bunt, and really a good idea considering the circumstances. The off-balance throw, that's really all Carlos could do. Deadens that ball well. There's Carlos. No chance to get a lot on that throw. The reason it's a great play is you at the very least get the runner to second base with a chance to get an insurance run, but they got more than that with the speed of Jankowski.
Well, the Cardinals have had opportunities in this game, no doubt. Runner at third a couple of times, only one out. But look at what the Padres have done with runners in scoring position this evening. It's been a struggle.
That's why it's 1-0 instead of 5-0.
They are 1 for 9. Solarte showing bunt. Runners at first and second. There are the numbers. They're 257 as a team, 1 for 9 tonight. And this team is 26th in the league in average at 243. So this is not an offensive club whatsoever.
Carlos is going to have to work to keep this a 1-0 game. Runs are hard to come by right now. Can't give up another one.
Randy Choate, Seth Maness throwing in the Cardinals bullpen. Here's a 1-2 pitch. This time, Solarte gets the bunt down. Molina calls for it, makes the play. Runners advance to second and third.
It's interesting that San Diego stayed with the bunt with one of their hottest hitters, Solarte, with 2 runners aboard. They know how important this 1 run is. They're able to get it down. That sends Mike Matheny to the mound. With Alonso coming up, we're going to see Randy Choate from the Cardinal bullpen. Another key moment with more to follow.
Well, this is the move if you're Mike Matheny. Randy Choate to face Yonder Alonso. Alonso is 0 for 5 with 4 strikeouts against Randy Choate. Our score 1-0 here in the home half of the 7th. The loud crowd on this Saturday night here at Petco Park. The infield is drawn in. Runners at second and third. Alonso has doubled inside the third base line. He has struck out and also popped up, and Reynolds made a fantastic over-the-shoulder basket catch out at shallow left. First pitch to him. Strike one. Undoubtedly, the Cardinals and many fans watching right now kicking themselves and thinking about, should Brandon Moss have scored on the base hit to right? And now you're saying, boy, oh boy, you wish he would have chanced it.
Well, knowing what you know now,
just thinking about the play, there's a little flare. Moss is making sure the ball gets through. It does. If he reads it perfectly off the bat, he scores easily from second base. He didn't, and the Cardinals don't cash in.
and even if he doesn't read it perfectly, which again is understandable, it was a flare to right. Would the Padres have risked a throw to the plate with a runner getting into scoring position behind it?
Again, it's Matt Kemp in right with 9 outfield assists.
That's the other variable.
This crowd is ready to explode. 2 balls, 1 strike. Choate has one job, and that's to get Alonso out, and he falls behind 3-1.
One of the things I love about this game of baseball, Dan, and we say it all the time, but there aren't often a lot of definitive answers. There's just a lot of really good questions. And a lot of opinions around those questions as to what should be done, when, and how.
We saw Choate in the game last night to face one hitter. It was Alonso, and he got him to fly out to right. Base is loaded. Back to the bullpen, the Cardinals go. The Padres, on the bases loaded, 1 out. Maine is coming on when we come back. Runner at second base. in the top of this 7th inning.
Yeah, we're going to take a look at it with two views. One is Brandon Moss on the left side. There's the slight hesitation, the base hit to right. And where is he when Kemp gets the ball? Now he gets it there. He's right on the bag. The decision is made not to send him. Now, Kemp is not very far on the outfield grass when he gets that ball, so he certainly would have had a good shot to throw out Moss at the plate, and you can understand the decision. But again, it's not a definitive thing. Cardinals haven't had a lot to show offensively. Maybe it was worth the risk.
I'm not sure Moss was going at 100% to the bag at third, and then saw Oquendo waving him. Then he picked it up, and at the last second, Jose said, well, too late.
I think that's very possible. That's one of the things I know Jose will do. He'll look at the runner to see if he is, how well he's running, and if he's prepared to score or not. It's just not just the outfield arms, it's also his runner.
Bases loaded. Here's Matt Kemp. First pitch taken way inside. Kemp is grounded to short, walked, struck out, and trying to make this a 14-game hitting streak. One ball, one strike. Well, if you're Mike Matheny, this is the guy that you want in this spot in terms of the double play, obviously.
Mr. Ground Ball, and that's what he needs.
Line drive, base hit into center. One run is in. Here comes another. The throw cut off by Moss. Kemp delivers with the bases loaded.
Frustrating inning for the Cardinals in the top half, and now it's gotten more frustrating here in the bottom half. Amos tried to get the ground ball. Kemp is able to square it up. Throw not in time. Not a bad location.
Closes the book on Carlos Martinez. And now it's Justin Upton. Strike one. Six plus for Martinez. 3 runs, 7 hits, 6 strikeouts and a walk. No home runs allowed. He did hit a man. 1 ball, 1 strike on Upton.
4 starts in a row now that Carlos has given up 3 or more runs.
Two and one. Fair ball. Hits the ball boy. 2 runs will score. Peralta has pointed that out. The ball boy or the ball man tried to get out of the way. It caromed off the sidewall and hit him. And I'm sure we're going to have some runners going back to the bag. That's a ball girl, excuse me. But I believe it hit the gentleman in the red.
And by hitting him, the Padres get an extra run. Might have hit her foot, also hits him. It hit them both. And that made the play much more difficult for the Cardinals left fielder, and Matheny's having his say. And I guess the question is that part of the ground rules? Is that something that's not in the purview of the umpires to say, well, they wouldn't have scored otherwise? Clearly that's the case because they both scored. 1 run would have scored anyway, but not both.
Nothing going the Cardinals' way now. 5-0 San Diego. So Upton the double, RBIs 66 and 67. things unraveling for the Cardinals in Game 2 of this series. And again, it's another big inning by the Padres to potentially put this game out of reach. With the way the offense has been going for St. Louis, 5 runs. Right now it seems like 20 in terms of the lead.
Agree. I'm not sure I've ever gotten a full understanding of security guards, ball girls, ball boys in play, how that would affect play. But clearly,
well, I'm with you. I think it definitely would have been runners at second and third, and only 1 run scored.
Must be treated like hitting an umpire who is past a fielder. It's not a dead ball, it's still in play, and you just play it. Now, if an umpire is hit in front of a fielder, that's a different story. It's a dead ball. But if it's behind a fielder, you just kind of play it. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6
1, 2,
on the
3.
field.
There are
security
6.
or ball girls.
Exactly. I missed one. All potentially a part of play.
A ball inside to Derek Norris, who's hit by a pitch, tripled and scored back in the 4th, and also flied out to right.
Cardinals had an inning last night they would like to forget that came in the 5th. 3 errors.
High chopper to third. Reynolds has it.
Tonight's inning to forget is here in the 7th, both top and bottom.
7th there on Mark Reynolds, making his 10th start at third base this evening.
Just airmails that one. Moss does a nice job of catching that ball, as Reynolds does at the beginning, but the throw almost airmailed.
There's Clint Barmas. Manus has come in, allowed a single, 2 runs, a base hit by Kemp, a double, 2 runs to Upton. Jerko grounded out. Norris reaches on the air. And now it's Barmas. First plate appearance, and he drives that out to left. Over the head of Stephen Piscotty. 1 run in. That's all they'll get on the double by Barmas. 6-0 Padres. Started with Alexi Amarista as a pinch hitter against Carlos Martinez, and singling to left. He'll bat for the 2nd time in this inning. No balls and 2 strikes.
You do not think of the Padres offense as a quick strike offense, but they've had 3 innings in the last 2 days where they've put up big numbers.
3 innings of 4 or more. Feeding off the energy of this crowd, too. And the 1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes. In the hole, base hit. Another run comes across. 7-0.
Cardinals should be out of this inning, but this base hit the other way is mercifully just 1 run, not 2, as Len Hoffman holds the second runner up. That pitch wasn't off the plate by 3 or 4 inches. Not a good night for Seth Maness.
Tyler. Louis Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest, brought to you by Budweiser. Make a plan to make it home. And by Ford, the official cars and trucks of the St. Louis Cardinals. Chevy call to the pen, takes his 2, Tyler Lyons. 9th appearance. He's done a very nice job when working out of the pen. You may see him finish up this game.
We've seen him a couple of times out of the bullpen. We've liked what we've seen. One time he had to come in early because of a short start, and he did well. That was Lance Lynn's game, went 5 1/3 innings. Very solid. Scoreless inning his last time out of the pen. He's got the good slider. You'd think that could neutralize left-handers. And the question with Lyons, who has not relieved a whole lot. He did some in the minor leagues, some with his USA baseball team that he played on when he was in college. Whether or not his arm will handle kind of the everyday work of a reliever.
Jankowski this inning with a bunt base hit. Runners at first and third. And the 1-2 pitch from Tyler Lyons. Slap the other way. An infield hit. Another run scores. Jankowski is second RBI.
I'm a afraid to ask what else could happen wrong in this inning. The speed of Jankowski. And the beat goes on for San Diego.
Here's Marte, sacrificed this inning. Runners at first and second. Nobody out. Drop down a bunt. Pulled foul. Since the air by. Make sure they make the play. Since the air by Mark Reynolds. We have seen 5 hits. Little bouncer to the right side. 7 hits, 7 runs. They send 12 to the plate. All Padres in the 7th inning. Here in game 2. Let's go to our studio in a Bomberito Sports Update with Jim Hayes. All right, Jimmy, thanks. Kevin Quackenbush into the ball game for San Diego. He pitched last night. It's our Chevy call to the pen. 41st appearance. If the Cardinals cannot come back in this game, they're down 8-0. The lead will be 3.5. The last time the lead was at 3.5 for St. Louis was the first game after the All-Star break. The Cardinals defeated Noah Syndergaard and the Mets 3-2. The Pirates lost. The lead was 3.5.
Cardinals have really been consistent month by month. You think about how good their April was, how good their May was, but really they've had winning months. The problem is that the Pirates and the Cubs are doing the same. You see a couple of pinch hitters for the Cardinals here. There are 2 bench players other than Tony Cruz. We'll get the pitch hit. Borges will bat for Peralta. Cosma on deck to hit for Hayward. Quackenbush, the reliever. I wonder, Dan, how much the top of the 7th affected the bottom of the 7th. Think about the disappointment of that inning. And Pat Murphy bringing in 3 relievers to get 3 strikeouts with 2 runners aboard in a 1-0 game. How deflating that was for the Cardinals.
Even take it a step further, it was their second opportunity with runners at first and third, 1 out, and did not score. So they've had 2 opportunities tonight to put runs on the board, to string something together. They couldn't do it. And give the Padres credit, their bullpen came in. That's fouled back off the bat of Borges and shut down the Cardinals. Subchitsky, the strikeout of Wong with first and third, 1 out. Then Norris struck out Piscotty looking. The Cardinals have struck out 13 times tonight.
We said those at-bats could be key moments in this game. And looking back, that's when the game turned.
That's a strikeout of Borges as the catcher. Norris was crossed up. So Borges strikes out. That's 14 now tonight for the Cardinals.
I think Norris got that one on a wrist or a hand. That one crossed him up, and he barely got a body on this. He's looking for a breaking ball, and it's a fastball. He's looking for it to come down. Hits right on his wrist. He doesn't know where the ball is. All he knows is he's in pain. But another strikeout for the Cardinals. They get a base runner, but another strikeout.
Peter Borges is 0 for his last 19. You're Mike Matheny. Let me ask you this. I mean, you've had now back-to-back games.
Ouch.
You've gotten beat up. I mean, last night, a couple of big innings knocked him out. 7th inning of this game potentially knocks him out. They're down by 8 runs. You're Mike Matheny. Do you just say, all right, boys, tomorrow, no BP, show up late. Let's just relax. Let's go out and have a little fun. You change the lineup. What do you do to try to get things going?
Well, I think those are all possible things to do, but I would say that Mike's theory, and a lot of baseball people have this theory, is regardless of what happens the day before, you stay with the process that you've set in place and don't change it. And the thought would be, if you change it, now you're opening yourself up to having to manipulate it day after day based on good day and bad day. And his belief would be, you just stay the course. Do what you did to get to 77 and 44, and let's not panic. Because sometimes when you do something like you're talking about, Dan, it feels like, in some ways, a panic move. And you don't want that to happen. Kind of surprised he stayed in this game. You can see the swelling already, and boy, the insult to injury would be if they gave that a pass ball instead of a wild pitch. They probably did.
I don't know how you could. It was right down the middle.
Well, he's out.
So a new catcher is into the game. That's Austin Hedges. Takes over behind the plate. It's still a long ways to go on this road trip. Another game tomorrow with San Diego, 4 with Arizona. Under Chip Hale, they have played, I think, better than most expected. They play hard. And then you go to San Francisco. Never an easy place to play. And a team that is fighting in the National League West. And who knows? They can wind up winning the West. Maybe a wild card. San Francisco started tonight a game and a half back of the Dodgers. The play behind the runner at first, that's Peter Borges. So it does not get any easier after tonight.
We talked in the Open yesterday, Dan, about when you go to the West Coast, you come to these beautiful ballparks or these beautiful cities, and sometimes it doesn't feel so beautiful because they're tough places to win.
Kozma into shallow right, and the catch is made.
The West Coast trip has been known over the years to make you and break you sometimes. And you just have to, again, keep battling. Don't overthink it if you're the Cardinals.
Tony Cruz will hit for Molina. No position players left on the bench for the Cardinals. Yeah, the Cardinals had not had a couple of games that I can recall back-to-back like this all season long.
I can't remember. Not a lot of long losing streaks in general for the Cardinals. Not that they're on one now. Then it coming off a 6-3 homestand. You win all 3 series at home. Feel pretty good about that, but Padres have been rude hosts the last 2 nights.
Hit to the right side, out at second, back to the bag at first, safe. The Dodgers lose to Houston today. So the Padres, with a win tonight, if they hold on 6.5 games out in the West. A.J. Preller, their GM, who made so many moves in the offseason. This has been probably the team that was the most active in the offseason, and then not at the deadline said, I still believe we can get in this thing and win it. Now, whether or not that was because he could not find suitable trades, trying to put a spin on it, or he believes it, well, 6.5 with still plenty of time to go.
Well, you got to believe it first. Players got to internalize it and believe it. And then you got to go out there and prove it. Stranger things have happened in this game.
They have a couple long homestands coming up in September. They've got 6 more left with the Dodgers. 6 more left with San Francisco. 1 ball, 2 strikes on Mark Reynolds. Two and 2 the count. Runner at first and 2 down. Here in the top of the 8th. Strikeouts from the Cardinals tonight. Cardinals have been outscored in this series 17-3. If they cannot put up a run in the 9th inning, it'll be the 10th time they've been shut out this year. Tyler Lyons, second inning of work. He'll get Brett Wallace to lead it off. Wallace with a home run and a 2-run shot off of Carlos Villanueva last night. Wallace, who was just a tremendous hitter at Arizona State, well, his head coach is now his manager, Pat Murphy. Breaking ball and a strike.
You know, I almost said right before the pitch that he hit out here last night, I wasn't too thrilled with that matchup, him against Carlos Villanueva. Villanueva, kind of an off-speed pitcher, doesn't throw particularly hard, and that's the one thing with Wallace. You know, you feel like you can get him with a good fastball, but it almost, that matchup didn't feel right. Felt like that would speed up his bat a bit.
He crushed it.
Oh my, did he ever?
Here's a 1-2. And Brett Wallace strikes out as he flips the bat. Lyons gets the first out here in the home half of the 8th.
I think what you do in a game like this, Dan, it's 8-0. You know, your chances of winning are extraordinarily low. I think you just play it out professionally and do your best and realize that, you know, it's still the big leagues. You're still a professional. I got to kind of work to make a name for myself if you're Tyler Lyons, and, you know, you're going to get an at bat if you're Tony Cruz, and you make the best of it and kind of go through it and come back tomorrow.
This was such a tight game for a while, too,
yes,
until that 7th, and it'll be interesting to hear the comments from the players and Mike Matheny, one about the strike zone. And the strike zone has had a big effect on this game. It's not the excuse as to why they lost, but Matt Carpenter argues balls and strikes. His spot comes up with runners at first and third. You're using Wong after he's ejected. And the Cardinals, twice with runners at first and third, 1 out, don't score. That's not the umpire's fault. That's on them.
Right.
However, I think it's going to be interesting to hear what they have to say.
Well, one thing we didn't talk about at the time, but it was kind of in the back of my mind, is what did Carpenter say to get tossed, too? I mean, was that a quick decision by our home plate umpire? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe he deserved that, too. That may be something that comes out in post-game interviews.
Wong puts it away as Kemp hits a soft liner. Matt Kemp with that base hit off of Manus in the 7th that scored 2. Now gives him 74 RBIs and a 14-game hitting streak going into play tomorrow. Here's Justin Upton, who also picked up 2 RBIs with a double. 2 doubles tonight. And he's 2 for 4.
There's also a side, Dan, for the players to think, okay, it happened, it's over. I'm really not that interested in overanalyzing it. We were outplayed tonight. We were outplayed last night. We'll go back tomorrow and try to outplay them. That's kind of all I really want to talk about. And I get that, too. Sometimes the more you talk about it, the more you kind of delve into the details about what happened as a player, I'm talking about now. That can become almost a negative reinforcement of that moment instead of kind of getting past it.
Arizona winning tonight over Cincinnati. That game late. They would be 6 back. As Upton takes a ball low. Washington has posted a victory, but so has New York. New York wins again by the score of 14-9. Back-to-back games, 14-9. And the Mets are now 10 games above 500 and a 5-game lead in the National League East. It's the second time in baseball history consecutive back-to-back wins by the score of 14-9. That's it.
Really?
The 2-2 to Upton. And a strikeout for Lyons.
Good inning.
Despaigne, the right-hander, was in the rotation, now working out of the bullpen. We'll try to finish this one off as we get a look at his numbers presented by Chevrolet. The Cardinals have struck out 15 times tonight. And it's the 5th time they've done that this year. 15 or more strikeouts, which ties a team record which was set back in 2012. That team was 1 win away from the World Series. 2013, they made it to the World Series. Last year, NLCS. This year, we'll know more in about a month. And a strike to Brandon Moss. When you watch Despaigne pitch, think El Duque, Orlando Hernandez.
Been taken out of the rotation, now finds himself in the bullpen. He's kind of guy that's going to throw from a lot of different arm angles. He has the 9th, and the Cardinals, boy, you'd hate to see him add to that strikeout total. 15 strikeouts you mentioned. That is a ton of strikeouts.
El Duque was at Yankee Stadium today for the retirement of number 20, Jorge Posada's number. They have retired, it seems like, everybody's number. Going to run out of numbers.
About 20 years, the Yankees infielders will have numbers in the 90s.
Yeah. Here's a 1-2. And Moss hits it foul and out of play. Jim Hayes standing by with a post-game show. All the highlights around Major League Baseball, all the news.
Interesting that the team that started and really invented putting numbers on a baseball uniform are going to run out of those numbers. Many people know that love baseball that they put the original numbers were 1 through 9 for the players in the batting order.
Moss strikes out for the 3rd time tonight. That's 16. 10 of those were from Ian Kennedy, our Budweiser player of the game, and he has a chance to pick up the victory. And Kennedy would go to 8-11.
Kennedy entered this game 2nd in the National League, giving up 26 home runs. But what he did here tonight was strike out a lot of people, use the big plate. Really had a nice night.
Here's Tommy Pham, 2 for 3. Three for 4. 2 singles and a double for Tommy Pham. Came in hitting 193, small sample size, now well above the 200 mark with 3 hits. And the Cardinals out of position players, so Lyons has to hit for himself here. Could be looking at strikeout number 17. The 1-0 to Lyons. Three 3-0. Colton Wong is on deck.
I know most teams don't do kangaroo court anymore, but I think walking a pitcher with an 8-0 lead in the 9th inning ought to be a pretty hefty fine, wouldn't you think?
Absolutely. Uh-oh. How much?
Well, let's see. In 2015 dollars, maybe $10 for that. What do you think?
That's it? Inflation.
Yeah, probably more than that. Yeah, a little light on that, probably.
Here's Colton Wong. Struck out back in the 7th with runners at 1st and 3rd. At that point, it was a 1-0 game. And that pitch is taken low, and the strike zone all of a sudden has shrunk. Little flare down the third base line and a foul ball.
So you think about this at bat for Colton Wong. Again, 8-0. I mean, you're going to need probably more than you can do to come back in this game. But for Colton Wong, maybe a turnaround opportunity for him. Get a good at bat, get back on track. He hasn't had an extra base hit, as you've said, in a while. Maybe get the confidence flowing a little bit.
It's a kind of at bat that if you think about an extra base hit, you say, okay, maybe that's what gets him jump started, and he's back in the lineup tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. Certainly, Tommy Pham is impressed with his 3 hits here tonight. You always have a job to do, no matter what the score.
1-2 pitch, could be 2. Out at second, double play, 4-6 throw. This game comes to a close. The Padres will look for a sweep tomorrow over St. Louis. The 10th time this year the Cardinals have been shut out. A disturbing amount of strikeouts, 16 in this game by the Cardinal hitters.
Cardinals were outplayed, they were outpitched, they were out-hit, and they were out-defended here tonight. Nothing else to say about it. Come back tomorrow, turn things around.
On to the postgame show. Jim Hayes is standing by with all the highlights. And a frustrating night on